Hi, I'm Armando, host of the Founder's Guidepost. You've built your business over decades, and now it's time to think about that once in a lifetime exit. You've come to the right place. Here, you will hear business exit professionals talk about what you should know before exit. Besides hosting the Founder's Guidepost, I'm CEO and founder of AXIOM Founders Family Office, a Scottsdale wealth management firm helping founders and their families preserve their American success story. We oversee and coordinate a network of vetted professional advisors to help maximize the probability of achieving everything that is most important to you. And we host the Scottsdale Founders Forum, a biannual live event for the founder considering exiting in the next 36 months. Here's to your hard work and your American success story. Enjoy. Hello, this is Armando with the Founders Guidepost, here today with Richard Dickens of Dickens Quality Demolition. Richard, you built your company years ago and then went through that sale process. And I'll just give a very quick introduction of you. Richard built his company from scratch and has become Arizona's largest demolition contractor, doing work in Arizona, but also throughout the Southwest. And Richard, you definitely are one of those American success stories that many business owners would look at and think to themselves, they want to do what you've done. They want to have the success that you've had. So in this conversation, we'll just talk about the exit, about when it was time for you to sell and that. So Richard, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Richard, let me ask you, when you had your company about 22 years when you actually exited the company, but how did you know it was time? How did you know it was time, that it was time for you to look at the next phase and begin to go through that sale process?
Well, for me, it started with just kind of understanding my own, mine and my wife's desires, how we wanted to spend our time and kind of this second half of our lives, if you will. And we had reached a place where both of our daughters were through college and were really kind of starting their own lives and financially we were in a place that it seemed like we could start to really take a look at the possibility of transitioning out of the business. And then I think from the work standpoint, we were continuing to grow. So the needs of the company itself were kind of getting a little bit bigger. And meanwhile, I was wanting to maybe not have that be the case, because I was at a place in my life where I kind of wanted to start to maybe slow things down, but just the momentum of the business itself was definitely continuing to need more commitment from me. And so it was really that, really kind of seeing that the business needs more of me and I want more of things outside of the business. So it just became obvious that I couldn't, it was going to be difficult to have those two opposite forces pulling at me. So I needed to make a decision.
When I asked you that question, you started with your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you started there, because really, when you're going through such an enormous transition as you did with letting go of the business and transitioning to a new owner, it really needs to start with, are you ready from a family standpoint? And it sounds like you were. You were having dialogue, it sounds like, as well as with your wife and talking about it and what that might look like. Were those easy or difficult conversations? How was that?
I think that they're fairly easy conversations, but with a lot of depth and pieces to those conversations. I'm fortunate that my wife actually helped me start the company and worked for the company for 8 years. So, she had a feel for the kind of stress and pressure that being involved in the day-to-day activity of the business, she was familiar with it. So it wasn't like I was speaking a different language to her. She had lived it and worked it, and so she had a great understanding of what I was dealing with from a executive level. And then, I think it's important for us to have, to make sure that we're on the same sheet of music, and just with our goals and our desires, whether it is from, just from an income standpoint to how we do see spending our time. Not that we got to, agree on every little detail, but I think it's important that we, one, understand financially what our needs are as a couple, and then how do we balance that with kind of have that work life kind of balance. So I think that I'm fortunate that like I said, I had a wife that was involved in the company, so knew what it was, and then also both of us very involved in kind of our finances and our budget and spending and stuff like that. So like I said, I'm real fortunate that me and my wife have always kind of been a team in regards to that. So so for the most part it was easy, but a lot of pieces to figure out for sure.
Yeah, good. Well, and that matters. That matters going into the sale, and then beyond that, that matters. It's critical, because when you're no longer hands-on in the company, that is what matters, that ongoing family, that ongoing relationship. So having that dialogue, those conversations before, really helps set the stage for the time after.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also, understand expectations after. If you're the type of person that has been out of the house 60, 70 hours a week, and then all of a sudden, that's going to change. I think it's important to be thinking about, what are you retiring to?
Yeah.
What are my activities going to be? Like I said, not that I think that you have to have every single little, hour of every day planned out, but I think it's important to realize that. And I think it's important to go into that time of your life to make sure that your that your life outside of work and business is in check. I think that as a founder and as a leader, a lot of times we just put so much time and energy into leading, the group at work, that sometimes it's our family that kind of gets the leftovers. So I think it's important, before you actually move into that stage, that you're not just coming home, in the evening and sitting on the couch and not engaging with your family. I think it's important to have that strong kind of family interaction. Me and my wife have been empty nest for quite some time now, so it's really just me and her for the most part. But like I said, to go from high level of commitment to the office and to the company, to how that's going to transition, and have those conversations. And like I said, some of it you're not going to have figured out, but I think that it's important to have those conversations, because the idea that I'm working 50, 60 hours a week and then I'm just going to sleep in and go golfing every day, I just don't think it's realistic. So and I think that's why a lot of people that are founders, I think, struggle with retirement, especially depending on their age. I know of a lot of people that have sold their business, and within a year or two, they've started something else back up, because they just didn't have a good plan in place on what they were retiring to. And that was some advice that had been given to me by a mentor that I had, that just make sure that you understand what you're retiring to, and that you do the front end work to make sure that you're ready for that change.
Yeah, excellent. I'm so glad you started there. So let me ask you, on day one, when you started your company, if you could talk about what it looked like at that point, and then fast forward to the point where you decided it was time for you to step out of the business. Fast forward to that time, if you could.
Well, I think that when we started the company, it was all hands on deck. I mean, it was. And my wife actually worked for the company for a year for free on nights and weekends, and we had two young kids, 4 and 7, so raising kids, and then I worked, really 7 days a week, and 10 to 12 hours a day, and was really just kind of mainly focused on establishing the foundation of the company, making sure that my vision of the work that we wanted to perform got, transferred and handed down to the people I was working with, and the people that were actually in the field producing, and that we were doing everything in our power to go above and beyond to perform at a level that our clients had gotten used to me, but really, making sure that they understood what we had to offer so that the company would be viable and had a strong foundation. So just a lot of work. And I think that then when the decision was made to sell, I think that we kind of had to relook at all of that stuff and make sure that those that we were leaving the company in the hands of, and even the new partnership, that they understood the base foundation that the company was built on, what our clients expect from us, and how to keep it being successful. I think it's easy to just think that you just come in and work hard and everything's going to work out. I do believe that if you work hard, that things will pan out, but you have to have a plan. You have to make sure that you communicate what expectations are. You have to be able to coach when expectations aren't being met, and then you have to be willing to take a break and celebrate when milestones are met or exceeded, and I think it's important to do those things. So a lot of that, kind of similar from the start to now that deciding to transfer the business. I think that really kind of focusing on the what the company was based on and what I believe is important.
And so, Rich, from a planning standpoint, how far in advance, when you began to think about the exit, the whatever that was going to look like, how far in advance did you begin to actually plan and make some changes and do some things so that you could have that sale when the time was right?
For me, I think that time frame was probably a little bit shorter than most. I think from the time that I really accepted the fact that selling the business was really what was best for me and my wife, and then also best for the company and its employees and our clients. I think from the time that decision was made, that actual decision, then it was pretty quick for me. I would say within a year from the time that the decision was made that I actually hired a firm. We had gone through the process of interviewing firms and kind of narrowing that search down to who we felt was a good fit for us to work with. And but it was probably only a year. And then from as far as preparing the business for a sale, I'm really fortunate. I was actually thinking about this on my drive in today, that I was really fortunate with the partnership that I have, that I've had in the business for the 25 years prior to the sale, in that we have always ran the business from a very, very just a clean operation. We had 4 partners, 3 of which were active. The 3 active partners all drew salaries, but then we all have different ownership percentages. So we've always been a company that didn't mingle personal stuff with business, and I know that can be difficult as a business owner.
Right.
And it's not always. I think that when people think about that, they think about, the company pays for a car that my wife drives, and that's a perk because I'm the owner. Most people think about stuff like that, but even down to charity stuff that's important. Our company has supported charities that are important to me personally, and by me selling the business and moving out of that place of the decision maker on where are we charitable and not, is getting ready to go away. So so even things like that, not just dinners and going to games or whatever, not just those type of perks, but even charitable stuff, all changes. So we've always ran the business in a very, hey, this is business, that's personal, and don't intermingle the things. So we really, our company was what I would call very clean, and from that aspect. So there wasn't like a lot of stuff that we had to start doing differently.
Right.
But I would say that that's something that really needs to be looked at, because I mean, like I said, just from whether it's golf or your entertainment or or even charitable organizations that are important to you, if those are things that are really a result of you as a person and who and kind of perks for you, that stuff has to be looked at, and you have to have a realistic understanding of what that is. I think that you have to look at that whole package, and
Right.
and you're getting paid this or bonus that, but all those perks as well. I think that they have to be looked at. But for us, we didn't have to do a bunch. But there are a few things, definitely when it gets down to charitable stuff, because like I said, there are some organizations that are important to me personally, and then I've got to make a decision. Am I gonna am I going to continue to support those, but now I'm going to support it personally, or just stuff like that. So I think it's important for you to take a look at those things. But for me, from the get-go, I've always my partnerships. My partnership has always been one of keep personal stuff personal and
Yeah.
business. So
Yeah. And that's a very good point, that if it had not been clean, and I use that word off of myself, meaning clean, the business is the business, and personal family stuff stays out of the company, in terms of even those gray area expenses, like maybe a car for the spouse, or maybe a family vacation, or things like that. If that needs to get cleaned up and taken out of the company in preparation to sale, that can certainly affect the financials and can affect things that need to get cleaned up so that you are sale ready. But since you've been running it clean that way the whole time, you didn't have to go through that. And it,
no, I didn't, and I had a really great understanding of what my personal expenses were. I think that going into something like this too, you have to have a really good understanding of what your personal expenses are, and what I call your burn rate. I think that a lot of times, as owners, as founders, and or high income producers, sometimes you just can be oblivious to that. And I know that sounds ridiculous, even when you get into running the finances of a business and stuff like that. But even for myself and my wife, who has a finance background, when you really truly track and then you create budgets based on historical data, it can really be eye-opening. But I think it's important, once again, not only to understand maybe some benefits that you're getting out of the business and what it's going to take, but if you're selling, I always say, if you're selling the golden goose, you better make sure that you know how many golden eggs you need to potentially last you, unless you're just transferring it. Hey, it's one business, I'm selling this and then I'm starting this other one up. Maybe that's different, but I think that for this conversation's sake and for myself personally, this is the business that really funded my life and my life spending and my life going forward,
yeah,
and not only from spending but also charitable support and stuff like that, and even stuff with family and everything that draws from your account. So yeah, I just think that it's planning and all of that stuff is just.
and so Richard, you mentioned about choosing a broker. Once you made that decision that it was time for you to transition out, you mentioned choosing a broker. How did you find the right broker to help transition you out of the company?
Well, my process was that I actually had a business coach that kind of started the initial, I'd thrown a couple of names in the hat, and then with his experience, he had a few names that, and honestly, he went through kind of that first round and narrowed it from 10 to 5. And then we really looked at brokers that had experience in the construction, arena, and that really kind of narrowed us down to 3. And then I just did interviews. I did interviews, and really through my interviews, I narrowed it to 2. and then I brought in the balance of my of the ownership team. I brought in the three partners that had helped me, that had really helped me from an executive level, not only build but maintain the business, and to see what their opinions were, and at the end of the day, the four of us all landed on the same firm. So I think it's important to actually go through the steps and do comparatives and really just go through the steps. I think that somebody that just meets with one firm and then signs them, I just feel like you're not putting the work in, and no differently than tearing a building down. You have to put the work in on up front to make sure that the project goes smooth. And I think it's the same in this area, especially when you're selling your golden goose. You just want to make sure that it's with the firm that is going to represent you and understands your desires. For me, and I think that for most anybody, founder, there's definitely the financial aspect of it for sure. But then there's also, this is your baby. This is your baby that you raised from infancy, through adulthood, and I think it's important to maximize, your sale price, of course, but also to be able to have a firm that understands your wishes and desires with the business and the type of partner you're looking for. And so, like I said, for me, it was just a process that we went through, and then I used the group that I had around me, and then some wise counsel that I had around me as well to help me make that decision.
Okay, so you interviewed several, narrowed that down, had your ownership team all have conversations with the prospective broker, and you all felt good about that broker, and then chose that broker.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you had not gone through that process before, right?
Never, nothing like this.
So, any thoughts you'd like to share about that process for the founder who's not gone through that before? Anything that you'd like to share that maybe things that were surprises, or things you would have asked or should have asked, or any thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, I don't know if there's any major surprises. I guess the biggest thing for me is,
are you wondering if you've missed anything in your planning? We hear that a lot from very smart, very successful people. And that's why you may be interested in our founder stress test, even if you've already sold your business years ago. For more information, go to axiomcorp.com.
Is realizing that you don't know everything. I think that going through this process, no differently than my business, there's I think that I think a lot of times, founders go, well, I know what this business is worth. I've been running this thing for X amount of time, and this is what it makes. And so on a standard investment, it should return over this period of time. And here's your ROI. And, looking at all this is what it's worth. But the reality is it doesn't matter if you're, looking at taxes or looking at tearing buildings down or selling a building. People that's what they do. They know all the ins and outs, and I think that it's important to hire professionals, in regardless of what you're doing, whether you're tearing a building down or you're filing your taxes or creating legal documents or what have you, you get what you pay for. So I think it's important to the firm I actually selected, believe it or not, the initial assessment on the value of the business wasn't the highest that I had received from the other firms, and their fee was actually even a little bit higher. So they say my business is worth less, and their fee was higher. But in reality, they shared the process with me and where their valuation was, and also they also shared that this is an estimate, and there might be a strategic buyer that makes us value even greater than that, and there could be things that we don't know, so they went into it not with, hey, we know everything, but we're going to work, we're going to plan, we're going to talk to everybody we can, and yeah, so I just think it's like I said, you hire professionals. I'm not going to go to my general contractors to talk about my health. I'm going to go to my doctor. So,
Right.
I think that you want to hire the best if you want the best done for you. So,
Right. And that is something that does happen with founders, that they feel comfortable, they feel that they can do that. But just as you said, when you hire a professional and that's what they do day in, day out, they're
yeah,
probably going to be pretty good at it, and they're probably worth the money to hire them, to have them perform their expertise for your benefit.
yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
And so, Richard, as you went through that process, you hadn't gone through the process before. Now they're out there looking for prospective buyers, and then they were bringing you different people to look at. Eventually, the owner, you decided who was the who was going to buy your company. What was it about that particular company versus the others that you felt good about and decided they were the right ones?
I think that they really displayed that they understood um, just, I guess, the level of care that I wanted for my employees and my clients. Um, I really felt that they took the time to really get to know me, get to know the business, understand what was important and why we had the success we had. There was a handful of different firms that looked at us, and a few that were really looking at us, more like just a piece of a puzzle. And I get that, I mean, their goal was to build, something that we looked like a good piece for what they were building. But the firm that we ended up partnering with, and that we ended up selling to, I felt had a track record of understanding the importance of our culture, and just kind of their history, and a deal or two that I was familiar with, and companies that they had been involved with, that I was familiar with what was important to those companies, and it gave me a level of comfort. The last thing that I wanted to do was to see what we had built just get ripped apart.
Hmm.
And I just I felt a level of comfort, and like I said, with some knowledge of previous deals that they'd been involved with, and companies and owners that had transitioned out, that had worked with these guys, really kind of, I don't know, it just gave me a level of comfort, honestly. So
Okay. And then you stayed on. You stayed on after the sale.
yeah.
So you decided on that buyer, did that transaction, and then part of the way you decided to exit, you actually stayed on, and you've been on with them for 2 years.
Mhm.
Looking back, would you have done that again? And really, why did you decide to stay on versus just walking away?
Well, one, very active in the business, and so part of our valuation is tied to me running things, honestly, and it takes time to transfer that knowledge, and whether it's bring in others, or promote from within, that just takes time. So the reality is that part of it was just the necessity of the deal.
Okay.
They weren't going to just, sign the deal and let me walk out the door, without, showing the ability to repeat what we had done, and give time for that actual transition. I'm active in the business. So part of it was just that, the necessity to
Okay.
to make that happen.
Yeah, with the
And then also for myself, just to process, I think is part of it. I'm getting ready to start my last year of my 3-year employment agreement. And I tell people that part of me honestly hasn't even completely processed the selling of the business, because the sale took place, and a bunch of money came into my account and then went out to investments and charitable stuff, and 3 days later, I'm back at the office and I'm working and I'm running things.
uh,
And so some of it hasn't really happened, from a true emotional and
right.
just that physical transfer of power, if you will. But so some of it was really by design, a necessity of the business. Some of it was to help me kind of really mentally be able to handle going from running this thing for 25 plus years to actually stepping out of it. And so for me, it's been great. The partnership is fantastic. The guys that are managing, the new partnership that owns the company, they're great to work with. There hasn't been any, I got a lot of warnings from people that I knew that had gone through it, and now you probably won't even be there for 12 to 18 months. And so I, kind of had that in the back of my head, that there is the potential that I get, released early.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been the case for me. And I think it's twofold. I think it's one, it's me realizing that I no longer am the majority owner of the company, and that we have investors and we have a board, and my job as president is to produce and to run the company and grow the business, and also stay with inside covenants we have, and that's different, and it's taken a little bit of getting used to that for me. But as far as working with the partnership, it's been great. I really enjoy our partnership. I think they're great guys. They're smart. They respect my wishes, our employees, our clients, and they're looking to grow the business. So I think that the opportunity that this has reignited has been fantastic. So so for me, it's been good. But I do realize that in the next year, I'm going to have to kind of process that next step, which is really kind of handing over control, and I think I'm ready. But I'm sure there'll be some times that well, there'll be some, I'm going to have to mourn some of it as well. So, but
And
I know that going into it.
and so, Richard, I
I'm big
imagine.
about having good counsel around me to help keep my head screwed on straight. So,
So I imagine that when your employees understood that you were selling and that you were staying on, I imagine that gave them comfort.
it did. I think that in the first, I communicated to them, that in the first year they weren't going to see a lot of change, that there would probably be a lot more closed door meetings, and there would be some partners that they would see around here and there, but the main day in day out operation, that the new ownership liked what they saw. So but I think that even when you communicate that to people, there's always going to be fear, and we got through that first year, and I think that people saw that, okay, things haven't really changed, and people are still being promoted, and we're still getting work and equipment and everything, that it seems like things are continuing to happen the way that they have. In the second year, we had some higher management kind of change out. We had one of our active partners was a CFO, and she had a retirement plan when we went into the sale, and so we saw our CFO retire, who had been instrumental in the growth of the business, and very, very involved and active and in the company. So to see her step out, I think that gave people a little bit of fear, but we brought in a new COO and a new controller, And I think that people have seen that kind of smooth out, and once again, seen the company grow and people get promoted and opportunities and all of that stuff. I think that people have gone, okay, they're not just going to strip this thing down and we're all out of a job. I tell people all the time, do your job, work hard, and look to contribute, and you'll be successful, whether it's here or somewhere else. So, and I think that they've seen that actually happen and are a little bit more comfortable. But I think that if I'm completely honest, there's some fear around the next year and the next, we're at that next stage. We've stabilized through the sale and managed through a transition of a key employee and brought in some new management and created some new systems, and we've seen those system changes be helpful and to us. But people are naturally afraid of how things affect them, and so most everybody here, they don't necessarily know my end goals, but they know I have a 3-year employment agreement. That's usually the number one question that gets asked of me by whether it's a client or even a high level employee. So what's your plans? How long are you going to be here? And I just I share with them that right now we're working towards transferring the management of the business, and I'm not just going to abandon everybody, but we're going to continue to work to have me be less and less the point person, and really support kind of that transfer of management. So
Yeah.
So I think so.
And transitions can be scary no matter what the transition
Sure.
is, because that's part of our human nature. Of something new, it's going to be a little uncomfortable.
For sure.
That's normal.
Yeah.
So as you said, you've got a 3-year stay on with the company. You've just finishing the second year of that, one more year to go. So you really haven't changed your day-to-day activity as will happen and say that a year from now. So you're going to have to go through that yourself.
For sure.
Are there things that, as you look back at where you are now, and you're talking, say, to a founder who is thinking that he or she needs to begin to have that transition thought process of thinking about that, what would you like to share with them? What should they know that you've learned in this process that they should be thinking about that maybe they just weren't aware of? They just haven't gone through this before.
Yeah, I think it's understanding what's important to you, and where you place your identity. I had a conversation with a friend of mine that is probably at least 10 years older than me, and is in a place financially that doesn't need the business, but he doesn't see he doesn't see himself not running the business. And I think that a lot of that is because that's where his identity lies. And I think that it's important. And I think it's very, very common, and I would be lying if I said that, part of my identity isn't, running this company and being the guy that people recognize as the guy that runs this company. So I think it's important for you to really deep down ask yourself those questions. What's important to you? Where's your identity at? And do I need to shift maybe, those views, and am I going to be able to handle that? And if you don't know, then I would say maybe you're not ready. If it's just that, hey, I'm exhausted all the time, then okay, well, maybe you just need to figure out a way to get a little bit more rest or rearrange your schedule so you get a day off here and there. But I think it's important for you to be really honest with yourself. And then, like I said, for me, I'm really fortunate. Me and my wife, we've been married for a long time, but we enjoy doing stuff together. I had an uncle of mine, just tell me years ago, honestly, that, hey, kids aren't going to be in the house forever. And so when those kids are gone, it's going to be you and your wife. So before they're gone, you better make sure that you guys actually have a relationship with each other, and your relationship isn't just about paying the bills or getting the kids to the next practice, that you actually have a relationship with your wife, and that your wife is a priority in the house versus just your kids. So I think it's important to really do some soul searching in that stuff.
Yeah.
Whether that's meditating in the backyard or whether, I like to ride bicycles, mountain bikes, stuff like that, but really get quiet and really, maybe even do some journaling on what's important to you. Because like I said, for me, for the last 25 years, it was, build the company, take care of clients, take care of employees, and have some fun, take some time off, have some nice stuff, take some nice vacations. But really the business was the main driver. And so I think it's important to take inventory on where you're at in that cycle, and maybe what are the changes. There's different exercises you can do in that. Hey, when I retire, I want to this, or that, or this is what I want for my life. Okay, what are the things I need to do today to make sure that when I get to that place, that those things are possible. That you do. I've done this exercise in a couple of different seminars, but where you write your own eulogy, which can be very powerful.
Right.
What do you want? What do you want people at work to say about you? What do you want your family to say about you? What do you want people in the community or your church to say about you? At your funeral, and you write these things down, and you go, okay, what are the things I need to do to make those actually happen, and then do the work. And if you're so I think that kind of same type of exercise with the transition of the business or preparing yourself, that you go through that same process. So
yeah. Yep, that's very good advice. And that it's been said that about 80% of founders, after they sell, a year later they regret it. They don't feel good about what they did. So what you're drilling home about making sure you do that soul searching, and do it somehow, some way with your spouse, so that you both feel that it is the right thing, and then when it is done, you feel good about it. It was the right time. It was the right decision. And you're not having the regrets that most people do, or that many people do after that sale.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Richard, I do want to ask you a question about, legal. I've heard many attorneys say that they get a call often from their client, that the client's already signed the letter of intent and had many conversations with the with the prospective buyer, before they engage the attorney. And the attorneys tell me that the clients just don't want to pay the lawyer the fee. They're being what's that expression? Penny pound wise and penny foolish, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were thinking about that and made the decision, when would you say would be the right time to begin those conversations with the attorney to help you get that to happen the way you want it to happen?
I would say before you start the search for a firm to even market your business. I think that for me, and really, I believe for most, you really have to understand the people that you need really protecting you through this process. So for me, I believe that your accounting firm and your attorney, and or an attorney that is skilled in selling a business and all the nuances that come to that, with that, is important. So for me, I would say, gosh, probably even before you even made the final decision, just because there's just so many, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so, like I said, for me, we started those conversations with our attorney and our accountant. And I was fortunate that my attorney had managed through numerous business transactions, and one of his, specialties. And so, so to me, you really, that's almost the starting point. And for me, was actually part of what was involved in even deciding to sell, because I didn't know exactly, I just knew that, hey, around 55, 56, it'd be nice for me to not to be doing this anymore. But it really was meeting with my attorney and our accountant, and really understanding the legality and liability that I had, and even after the sale that I'd still have, and and then and even the tax part of it, when you have accelerated depreciations,
Yeah.
and it's everything that is involved. You go from, hey, we did this much work, we made this much money, to all of just everything that you have to manage through from the legal and tax. So for me, I think you got to engage. I would say that's probably the first people you have to engage, even before you do anything,
Yeah.
because I think that they can help you understand also, hey, this is where you're at, this is where you're actually at. You might be 5 years prior to even being at a place where your business is ready to look at and selling. And I think that if you have the right professionals in that arena,
Yeah.
they can help you with that and make sure that your business is set, whether it's, separating personal from business stuff, or truly understanding your tax liabilities, or where are there opportunities to maybe shift some money around tax wise and stuff like that. So yeah, I would do that first, for sure.
Yeah. Excellent. And you mentioned the word specialty when you talked about your lawyer. I'm glad you brought that up, because there are lots of business attorneys out there, attorneys that do lots of things, but it is a real specialty, the buying and selling of companies. And how important was it that your lawyer had that expertise as you were going through this process, or began to think about this process?
Yeah, to me, you have to have somebody that, and I think that you just have to. So how important? Extremely. So, and once again, you get what you pay for. When you start to add up all of these fees, it's easy for those fees between attorneys and accountants and M&A firms. It's depending on the size of the deal.
Yeah.
It can
It can add up.
deep into six, potentially seven figures. But once again, at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in surrounding knowing what understanding what and then surround yourself with people that know what you don't know. And I just believe that it's can you overpay for something? Yeah, I guess you can. But I think that by trying to be cheap in that arena, at the end of the day, it's probably going to cost you money. So
Yeah. And it is for many founders a once in a lifetime event.
right.
The biggest asset that you own, you don't want to, as you said a few times, you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't get the right expertise on board, and they don't know either, then the one that pays the price is you. It's the founder. See, it's
Right,
just
because 9 times out of 10, the people buying, they know, they know, and so, and like I said, not to talk about it like an adversary relationship, but at the same time, you are on two opposite ends of that contract, and like I said, I love my partnership, but there was push and pull,
right.
during the negotiations of the deal, and some stuff that they felt maybe I was pulling on too hard, and other things that maybe I thought that they were pushing on too hard. But at the end of the day, I think that we both feel good about what happened, and it was the help of the professional team that I had around me that I think helped me get through the process. So
Yeah. Yeah. And as you said, they are professional buyers looking at you. They've done this before. They've got the right expertise on board. And if you don't have your team that's going to be able to go up against them, not to make it adversarial, but someone's got to look out for your interest in that once in a lifetime event. It's just so critical to have the right people on board for that for you. I'm glad to hear that you had them.
yeah, and I think that the other thing to really realize is, and I actually had a conversation with a guy briefly just yesterday. it's an exhausting process. If you think that this is just going to be, hey, I'm going to pay some people and we're going to breeze through this, no, it's an exhausting process. And I think that's the other piece, that having professionals on your side is that when you're ready to throw in the towel, they're like, all right, we ain't throwing in no towel. They're holding you up and helping you to kind of get through that. But it's, it's an exhausting process. And probably about 30 days before I closed, I was meeting with the potential buyers, and somebody that they had done business. I ran into them and they said, "Hey, how's it going?" And I said, "Honestly, I'm exhausted." And he said, "It's not going to get any easier over the next 30 days, but you'll get through it, and just remember why you're here, and before you know it, this is going to be behind you." But because he had been through the process before, and but he was, kind of gave me that a little bit of encouragement, and get back in there, so that was nice. But it's, I mean, if you go into this thinking that, oh, I'm going to hire these people, and then I'm just going to get a check in a year or 6 months or 18 months, however long it takes, you're naive. It takes a lot of work. I mean, it really, really does. And for most of us, we're still running the business. The truth is that your deal isn't done until your deal is done. So you better not take your eye off the ball, at the same time. So, because, in my opinion, I think that the things that you do to run a business to make it attractive for a potential buyer are the same things that you do, a lot of the same things that you do as an owner to make the company viable and profitable. And I always say that I try to make decisions on running the business, whether it was attractive for a buyer or attractive for an existing owner to stay in, from a financial standpoint, mainly. But yeah, it's a lot of work for sure.
So given that it was a lot of work and it was exhausting, and you were trying to run the company, of course, and go through this process, are there things that I mean, now that you know that was exhaustive that way, are there things that you would maybe advise or recommend someone do that might help minimize some of that? Or is it just the nature of the beast?
Well, for me, I think that's a hard one for me to answer. I think it's partially the nature of the beast, unless you're not an active, owner. But the reality is most people selling a business have a full schedule. I mean, I don't know of anybody. I mean, maybe there are people that just hang out and they got 4 hours free time in their schedule every single day, and they're just looking for something to do, like reread the same contract 27 times. But for the most part, most of our days are full. Most of us don't sleep 8 hours a night, and so I think that going into the process, you need to be realistic. You need to be realistic with your schedule. I would advise that you carve out time, that hey, if what are the things you can give up. I guess I mentioned I love to ride bicycles and stuff, and I can ride 3, 4, 5 times a week. Not when I'm selling the business, I can't. And keep the things that are priority to you, make sure that you're taking care of your family and doing those things. But I think that realistically, you need to look at your vacation schedule and all of that stuff and be appropriate. It's an important time. So I think that it has to be given the time and the attention that it needs. And
Yes. It sounds like what you're saying is that it's going to take more time than you probably know.
Absolutely.
And prioritize and keep your own sanity and your health, so that you can go the distance on this.
Absolutely.
Sounds important as
well.
well.
The last thing that you want to do is at the end just go, hey, whatever, just put it. I'm tired of fighting. You don't want to be in that position. You just
right.
You want to be able to give it the energy that it needs. But yeah, it definitely a lot of long nights for sure.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, that's all good information. Any things that you would tell a founder who's hearing this conversation and they want to be able to emulate the success that you've had, and they want to do the right steps? You talked about having the right professional team on board. You talked about engaging your tax CPA and your attorney early on in the process. even before you begin the process so that you know what you're looking at and they can help guide and coach along the way. You talked about how you interviewed different brokers, narrowed that field down, and then when you had that narrowed down to maybe 3 or 5, you had your owner team all interview them as well, and then you all felt good about the one that you selected. The industry experience was important as well, and then you I think began about a year before you actually sold it to go through that process. But even before that, it sounds like from day one, you really ran this business as a standalone business that was not kind of an extension of your family and your family expenses. So it was clean, using your words, clean
Mhm.
from the get-go, which meant when it was time to sell, you didn't have to clean it up. It was already clean. And
Right.
many founders do have to clean it up, and that takes longer um, to get to that point. Other thoughts that you'd like to share, or as you've learned and you've got other founders looking at you, asking you questions that you might want to share with them that could help them before they go through this process?
Uh, I guess one of the biggest, probably even before I would engage my attorney and my accountant is my financial advisor. I think it's truly important for you to understand. I think for the most part, we quasi understand our financial goals, but to really get a handle on your finances. And I know that we hate the word budget. I know that I remember when my wife put us on the budget, it's like, oh God, but the reality is I think it's important for you to really truly understand those goals. Like I said, I've been very fortunate in that arena. And and I think it's important to have a financial advisor that truly understands what's important to you. Um, and then that they honor that. And for me, that was, I grew up with a really, really hardworking parents. My mom had a small business. My dad was a construction worker, and just very, very hardworking people. And so I think and they, we never went without. We didn't have a bunch, but we never went without. And but I think that even at a higher income level, I think I've always kind of had a little bit of a scarcity mindset. So I think it's important to be able to truly understand, your finances, investments, charitable organizations that are important to you, come up with a plan that allows you to, to be in a position to be able to do something like this. I think you got to have a really, really great understanding of your finances. Somebody told me once, and I don't remember who it was, but I tell people this all the time, is that the 10 most important years in your financial existence is the 5 years before you retire and the first 5 years after you retire, that you really have to have a solid handle on your spending, on what you spend. And like I said, that doesn't mean, hey, whether you live on 50 grand a year or you live on $500,000 a year, just know what it is.
Right.
And then, then you have to be able to maintain that, or have a realistic view of what life looks like after retirement. You're probably going to have more time, your travel budget might go up, or you your hobby budget, whatever it is. You're not spending all this time at work. You're probably going to spend it doing something. And so I think that just being really in a good place with that is important. And then, the other thing is kind of the charitable stuff, I think is important, especially when you got, people that depend on you,
Yeah.
whether it's, organizations or family members or whatever. I believe that is key, is really having a great understanding of that. And like I said, I've been very fortunate with having some really strong mentorship around me. But one of the first things I did is I sat down when I really said, okay, I think we're going to go down this road, is I said, okay, what are the areas that I need to make sure that I have advisors around me? And for me, it was legal, investment, tax, faith, and then kind of a business coach. So for me, it was those five, and then I seeked them out, and I said, okay, hey, would you be willing to not spend a bunch of time with me, but hey, maybe it's once a month a phone call, and once a quarter a sit down, and help me make sure that I'm that I'm keeping that I'm doing the things that I've communicated to you that that I want you to hold me accountable for, to help coach me in. And so I think it's really good to just take that time to assess what what you need around you to feel good about the decisions you make. Many advisors help us make good decisions. Now, I wouldn't have three different people advising me on my taxes, because it can get a bit overwhelming at that point. But I think it's important to have those people around you to be able to be honest with you and give you good advice. So
Right, right. No, that's very good advice. And you mentioned, as you mentioned, you're selling the golden goose, and you're going to sell that golden goose once. So
exactly.
once that happens, net attacks, how's that going to leave the family? And will you be able to live the lifestyle that you want for the rest of your lives? And then when your time comes, what does that mean for your adult children, grandchildren? How does that also help you support your community of faith as is important to you, and making sure from a financial standpoint that you can meet all those things that are important, and that you and your wife are both clear together as a team that it's understood, and it's well planned out as much as can be.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of great books out there that talk about it, and I think that you have to make a decision on where you're going to take your advice from, but making sure that your trusts and just all of that stuff is in place. Now, that's something that the reality is, as founders, we should already be doing all that stuff,
Yep.
but I've always felt like we've done a pretty good job at that, but until we went back through and did our trust, and it was like, wow, some of these decisions, were made 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
who is who's gonna be, who's gonna take care of our kids, and now our kids are both out of college, and we had to address some of this stuff, and so I think it's important to really do that, and I think that you have to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. I think that the idea that you're just going to have everything set in place, and the day of the sale everything is already done, and we had done a lot of work, and had really had gone into this whole process in what I felt a very strong position. And we literally just finished revising some trust stuff a month or two ago. That's 2 years after the sale, and I would advise that you do that quicker than that. But it just takes time to get through all of this stuff.
Right. And you've got to set those priorities.
Yeah,
So
you got to set the priorities, and even deciding up front, what you're going to do from a charitable standpoint. There's me and you, Armando, have talked about this before, but there's opportunity to do some deferred. You can give your money to the government. You can give a chunk of money to the government and let them make decisions for you, or there's some stuff that you can do before even deciding to sell your business,
right.
and or at the time of the sale that help you kind of defer having to make some of those decisions, but being able to take advantage of the tax opportunity with donating, to worthwhile organizations and stuff. And people sometimes get afraid that, gosh, you got to make all these decisions right now. Not necessarily. I mean, there's vehicles that are available that allow you to make a decision to donate, but not determine where it's physically going to yet, and take advantage of that from a tax standpoint, and allow, instead of a charity getting this much, and
Exactly.
and some of that for me is making decisions on where you're. It's almost like self-directing tax dollars, So, and you're going to pay some taxes. I mean, if you make money, you're going to pay some taxes. I mean, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But
Yeah. And that really drills home
Make a
2 points. You know, the what you said about engaging that tax CPA early on so that you know what that's going to look like. But then also then it gives you enough time to explore the opportunities that are available to minimize those taxes, meet your charitable goals that you want to accomplish as well, and maybe bring those two together in a way that is most impactful on the charity that you want to give and most impactful on your family as well.
Right. And I think that by doing a lot of that stuff, some of that takes the burden off the next generation. And,
Yeah.
I had a lunch with with a family member that parents have done very, very well. And they're getting up, older, and there's a tremendous amount of pressure and stress on this child that they want to do right, and they don't want to make foolish decisions. They want to honor their parents, and but the reality is that a lot of that stuff can be predetermined and predecided,
Right.
and if managed accordingly, take some of that pressure off, and have your wishes be met, and I think it's important to for next generation, for your next gen stuff, to be involved in things that are important for you, so that they understand maybe some of the decisions that you're making. We engage our kids in giving and stuff that's important to us, but I also don't want to just completely just go, oh, my kids know what's important to me, they're gonna carry on my legacy. Hey, that's great if that's what you want. For me, I don't necessarily, I want to make sure that the things that are important to us, I want to support my kids and all that, and maybe even get involved with some stuff that wouldn't be on my radar that's important to them. But at the same time, you can make a lot of those decisions in advance, and have your wishes be honored, and not put that pressure and stress on the next gen and all that. So
and beyond the sale, where you can still engage your adult kids and or grandkids or both.
Absolutely.
Ongoing, because as you said before, that the company is going to be gone, and then what do you after that? And it's good to plan ahead, and it can be very engaging philanthropy and charitable causes after the sale, and you can set that up before the sale and or during the sale for the best impact on your family, and really position things well for what you do with your day when you're done working.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
Good. Well, Richard, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been very, very insightful. You've been very freely sharing your experience and what you went through. And I'm hoping that other founders can hear what you've shared, and they can use that to benefit their own family and their own goals, and that as they go through their once in a lifetime exit. So
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Good. Richard, really enjoyed this.
Cool. No, great doing it. And I enjoy talking with you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Founder's Guidepost. Whether exit is on your immediate horizon or maybe 10 years down the road, there's something here for you. And remember, we all have an expiration date. We just don't know when that will be, which is why planning ahead is critical. And if you're wondering if you've missed anything in your planning, contact me to schedule your founder strategy call. You may call our office at 480-367-9000 or schedule a call at axiomcorp.com. Here's to your American success story.